go. The things we learn. Jim's making me technical. I am trainable, all right? It's not where I go naturally, but I am trainable. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. Last week, we talked about someone's life that was generous enough to offer their experiences, their challenges, their strengths, their struggles, and I thank her for that. This week, we're going to talk about the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the experience of those people who are living with, love, and care about someone who struggles with hoarding. I think it's a really good thing to have an appreciation for each side of that equation, all right? The balance of our life, our experience, and the experience of others. What I don't want you to do, however, if you are someone who is struggling with clutter, struggling with hoarding, struggling with making decisions that resolve that, I don't want you to use the other person's experience as a way to feel guilty or shameful or responsible. We are not responsible for the feelings of others. We are not responsible for what they take away from the experience with us and the meaning they apply to it. But both positions, both experiences are true and valid and important to know, all right? So I want this to be a learning experience rather than something that weighs us down any further than we already feel. Obviously, today I have, as I did last week, shadowed the individual's identity. This is not their name, and I have changed a few of the details that were not important to the validity of her story. I also want you to know that there are two documents that I want you to download, or at least go on hoarding.ca under Webcast Recordings. Today's date, that will read to be posted soon, a video to be posted soon, but under that are these two documents. This is one we're going to refer to, Environmental Risk Assessment Checklist, as we go through the story this morning. And this is a screen from one of my training PowerPoints about the don'ts. I'm also going to, if we have time, read this document, which is an expanded version of the don'ts about hoarding. So we've got two on the website. This one I want to share with you, but I don't want everybody and their brother being able to download it out of context, okay? You're going to have the context today. So let's get started. And I think today I'm going to do things a little differently because I want to get through all of this important material so that this podcast is a standalone. It has the experience, it has my take on it, it has the person themselves' interpretation of their experience, and it has, we can cover these three documents. So I may not be able to get to all the questions, so let's get started and see what we can accomplish together today. So I want you also to appreciate that living with someone who hoards and trying to be their helper as a loved one, what I call a clutter buddy, all right, is difficult. All right, it's difficult for them, and it certainly, quite often, I hear from you, is very difficult for you. It's very challenging to both individuals and the relationship that they share together. Now, remember that the condition of the environment is the outward manifestation of how both of those people, the people living with hoarding, the person who's creating the hoard, and their significant other are feeling, and how they're managing those feelings. And then they bring to it, each of you bring to it your own individual challenges. All right, I want you to factor that in when you hear this information today. So Lorraine was very kind, and she responded to my request for real life situations to be the basis of our coaching session. And so she kindly and generously and humbly offers you her story, and here it is. Lorraine and her current husband have been married for 11 years. She's 73, he's 75. This is her fourth marriage. This is his second marriage, all right? He's a widower, and her previous husbands, she realizes she divorced without rancor or hard feeling, with respect and kindness. Their divorce proceeded. But when she reflects on it now, she realizes that the reasons, the underlying reasons for each of those other marriages not moving forward beyond their healthy lifespan were for the same reasons, basically the same reasons that this marriage is now seriously in trouble. Lorraine offers that her husband is well liked and well respected in the community for what he does and how he acts and who people believe and experience him as being. And even though he's 75 years old, he continues to work part-time. One of the things that makes her feel vulnerable and delegitimized is her belief that his persona is so well received by their not their intimate friends, but friends who don't know them as well as the closest people, and certainly their neighbors and community, would render those people, that community she lives in, close and not so close, to believe that he is wonderful and that her feelings, her experience, she's afraid, would be interpreted as being unreasonable to him. She has had a long time career as a nurse, and being a nurse required her to be, and we appreciate these qualities in our nurses, disciplined, professional, supportive, efficient, organized, committed to the people that they're trying to help, and dedicated to the principles of her profession. All right, in numerous ways, including financially and practically, functionally, there is a strong imbalance in their current marriage. Because of her previous divorces, when she and her current husband decided to marry, her lawyer, who is very experienced in later in life marriages, strongly recommended to both of them that her husband and she keep their core finances legally separate. This is an important factor in one of her big concerns right now at the age of 73. Her current husband's career was as a sole business proprietor. It involved more risk, all right? He and his previous wife, his first wife, did have savings, and they intended those to be used for a shared retirement. His plan after retirement was to continue to work. He likes to fiddle with things, was to restore antiques and to continue puttering at what he does as an expert, as a master, which is landscaping and home improvements. Unfortunately, his previous wife developed pancreatic cancer, and because they live in the United States and their desire in this experience with pancreatic cancer together was to go far beyond the treatment recommendations of her doctor, and the medical bills went way beyond their medical coverage. As a result, their finances were seriously depleted, except for the equity in their home. So after his wife passed and he grieved and it was time to move on and he was selling the house, there was only $25,000 equity left in it. So it was necessary for him to continue to work. Lorraine, on the other hand, had a 40-year stable career, which allowed her to regularly invest and to pay into medical coverage, and also a retirement fund. So that retirement fund is what the lawyer recommended, that her husband's and hers and any money he made, other than the agreed shared expenses, remain his and be protected for him, and that her investment in retirement fund remain protected for her. And it's her medical coverage that covers her any ailing health or any need she has. Obviously, when anyone divorces, especially 3 times, both parties suffer. So that fund, again, another important fact in what we're talking about today, especially financially, is somewhat reduced, but not comparatively reduced by how her current husband's funds became reduced as a result of covering medical expenses for his first wife, who he was devoted to. She now realizes that 3 divorces later meant that when her partner failed to engage, which is happening in her current marriage to a reasonable degree, and continue to live only to meet their own needs. So first and foremost, her husband, not that he doesn't love her, not that he doesn't care, but his habit, his default behavior is to see himself as a victim, to be very negative, and to first and foremost process whatever needs to be done, whatever opportunities they are that present themselves to him to meet his own needs, all right? And that was the underpinning of the approach of her previous husbands. That was the point at which she decided each time that, okay, this marriage has lived as long as it can, and now my mental health, my physical health is being impaired because of the fact that that is the male partner's default response in each of her closest relationships. Added to that, though, was another factor that she now realizes she owns and she's responsible for. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So they both agreed that that their financial underpinning resources remain separate. And to this point, they agreed to set up and institute a prenuptial agreement before they marry. Under this agreement, Lorraine pays for all costs associated with their living conditions, except half the food and half the utilities, which her husband pays. The reason she mentioned this in our discussion, our one-on-one discussion coaching session the other night, which I offered her out of thanks for her agreed to participate, and giving us the material to look at the alternative perspective today. The reason she mentioned this is because the condition that the property is being kept in, not just the home, which she owns outright now, includes a 30 by 30, pretty high-end steel shed. And the way that the shed and the outside property is being maintained makes her afraid that he's putting her whole financial foundation, everything she has that will guard against the worst living conditions when you don't have the kind of social network that we have here in Canada as a semi-socialist country. Put that whole foundation at risk. And her concern is quite valid, all right? Because of this strong imbalance in their relation, not just financially. I mean, financially is bad enough, right? It says money can't buy happiness, but I got to tell you, we all know, all right, that it avoids a lot of misery, all right? So let's not pretend that it's not one of the key foundation blocks in the degree of the quality of life that we have and the safety that we can put in place for ourselves and those we care about. But that strong imbalance in their relationship is also true about the emotional and physical content of their marriage. The part that Lorraine now sees and understands, accepts, and takes responsibility for is that her default behavior, all right? Did nursing choose her or did she choose nursing? Her default response is always to care for people. More importantly, to add to that, to take perhaps unreasonable responsibility for doing most of the work. His emotional and physical dependence on her is an additional burden when he doesn't carry his own weight. The tasks that she's assumed responsibility for at this point, at this age, over the last 11 years, and the way the marriage has progressed, have worn her out, and she is extremely overwhelmed and on many levels used up. What her husband adds to the relationship, because the best and the worst, there's always a balance in a relationship. What her husband adds to this relationship is he provides companionship. He is more than happy to run errands to the store, which saves her some tasks, and she doesn't have to be alone. And even though she firmly believes, based on her past experience of other divorces and ending a marriage when it was entering into the unhealthy zone, is that she's not afraid to be alone, but there's something that she's resisting now, or there's something that is a default value and belief and behavior of hers that is drawing her back. Is it about what he can give her to avoid being alone, or is it about what her needs and her default response is? And remember, she's responsible for that. We are all responsible for the part we add to a relationship, how we get our needs met through our values, through our beliefs. And that's true for both sides of the equation in any relationship, especially in one that is as challenging as a hoarding situation, all right? So he joins her in an additional thing he adds is that she, rather than be a nurse, she really wanted to be an architect. She really wanted to build things and improve things. And he joins her in what has become somewhat of a shared hobby. And she admits that she does enjoy it. And that hobby is buying orphaned homes that are in terrible shape. You've seen those home improvement shows, folks. That's what she's talking about. And then turning them into something lovely the difference between their experience and way about this and those home improvement shows is that for her, it's gone too far. She doesn't have the energy to continue any longer, mentally or physically. And unfortunately, through this shared hobby, they never had the finances to do this while living in a different environment, in a different home, which would have allowed them to remain comfortable and secure in a stable home, okay, without chaos, without cost, while waiting for the housing market to yield them a profit on the hobby house that they would be working on, but they wouldn't have to live in those. If you've ever lived through a renovation, you know it is not a happy, pleasant experience. It is extremely stressful. So to have to live in the environment of the house being worked on means that they couldn't wait for the house values to perk up by renting those places. They couldn't afford that. They indulged themselves in this hobby, but in indulging themselves in this hobby, they paid a huge price. And now at, what is it, 73 and 75, it's taken its toll. So they weren't flipping houses. And what this meant is that over the last 11 years, she's had to pack up and move 5 times. All right. He moved with her. But remember, her vulnerability is that she takes over. She takes responsibility for anything that is undone. It's her default response. And it now is claiming a huge price. Because he started out with less through no fault of his own, and he hasn't managed the money he's made terribly well. He doesn't have what he could financially, and living in these homes was an additional cost, an additional factor. So a lot of her money went into improving these homes and then finding the next and indulging themselves in this talent that they share. Once or twice it was fun, but it isn't any longer, all right? The last 3 houses that they lived in, that they worked on, she now realizes she probably shouldn't have taken part, but she couldn't see a way out. And she thought if she did agree to the last 3, maybe that would give them time to, things would improve because he would be happier and not so negative and always feeling like a victim. So she reconciled herself. This is a real tragedy. She's been reconciling herself to the fact that this immensely imbalanced relationship where her safety net is being put at huge risk, all right, was her lot in life. And she blamed herself, all right, for this being her lot in life, because the underpinning of why this marriage is in trouble is a common thread through each of the 4 relationships she's had. Now, because he is with her, she does have some sense of security. However, that does not involve practical things like finances. And it certainly doesn't involve an adequate degree of emotional or physical support. He is extremely needy, all right? And he feels like a victim. And she's afraid to tell him the truth because she just can't stand. She's a very positive person, a very forward-looking person. She just can't stand more negativity, all right? So it has devolved now to sharing the facts, but not the truth, all right? And that's something she's trying to summon the courage up to not just nicely deal in a kind, soft, approachable way of what the facts are now, what the truth is for her, but to lay it out for him, all right, so that he can see what the cost is and what she's actually dealing with. All right. And the fact that he leans on her is another old behavior. Now, she recognizes that she is her own worst enemy. And she believes that this goes back, and I believe after talking to her for an hour and a half, that she's dead on the money. Her default vulnerability, even though it comes across professionally as strength and an asset in her own life, when she applies it in her own life, it is not. You can't bring your job home. It's a different context, all right? It goes back to a deep traumatic event growing up. At the age of 12 or 13, her father, who was very overwhelmed himself and had no idea how to deal with the situation any longer, delegated her as a 12 or 13-year-old girl to take care of her ailing mother, who lived with bipolar and addiction. It was Lorraine's job at 12. What 12-year-old is able, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, able to take care of an adult who is so vulnerable and so changeable? It was Lorraine's job to take care of her, to meet all of her needs and respond to and manage any crisis, as well as managing her own life as a 12-year-old girl and a student. Lorraine found this deeply embarrassing and shaming. She couldn't have friends over, so her social life was severely impaired. That is a huge developmental milestone for a child that age. And she needed to anticipate. So that hypervigilance, seeing the problem coming, that is not appropriate for a 12-year-old. And she needed to do that because she was responsible for the solution in any way she could think of. She tried to keep the truth from other family, from friends, from neighbors, from outsiders, to hide the truth about their home. And she was deeply ashamed, deeply embarrassed many, many times, because it didn't always happen successfully. She realized that she's still doing this. And she did it in her last 3 marriages. She's still doing that today with the stuff that's left all over outside of their home. It shames her. It shames her in front of her neighbors, in front of her friends, and he won't take responsibility for doing it. He says he's a procrastinator, all right? And we've looked at procrastination. We've looked at the vulnerabilities and the challenges with procrastination. So there's no blame here. It's just that if there isn't a solution, then she's stuck with the cost, all right? He's always going to get around to it, but he never does. Something more important always comes up instead. And so she ends up having to do it on top of being physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually on empty. Now she has to take over compensating for what he won't do. He talks about it, but he doesn't action that, all right? And her cost is shame and embarrassment publicly. Remember, this is a 12-year-old little girl inside her that's trying to hide the shame, trying to hide the embarrassment, trying to hide the truth, trying to cover, just trying to make it work, That's this frantic little girl inside her. All right, the person hoarding is not the only person suffering. Everybody as part of this relationship is bringing their own unique vulnerabilities as well as strengths. That's what I want you to understand. Everybody out there who themselves contributes to the buildup. No blame, no shame, no guilt. Just if you could see the suffering and the cost to the other person, you realize you're not alone. And in your partnership with whoever is going to be your clutter buddy, your supporter, whoever that's going to be, if it isn't a professional, they carry their own weight, their own burden. That's what I want you to take out of this. Now that she's exhausted, completely overwhelmed, now she's starting to feel used and taken advantage of. All right. She sees now that in each of her major relationships, what she was actually doing was playing out that old traumatic scenario with her mother. Now, there is a psychological belief, adage, principle that, you know, they say a girl marries her father, a boy marries his mother. That's not true. But what we do often do is gravitate to primary partners who mean that they represent the parent, mother or father, stepmother, stepfather, who you have the unfinished business with. Is that something, no matter what your relationship to hoarding today, is that something that you can look at? Is that something that you've done? Are you still playing that scenario out? Are you still paying those costs? And if you are, let me know. And what we will do is we'll do a whole podcast on how to break down old patterns and live forward. Remember our motto, live forward. There isn't room for the future. There isn't room for the present if you're dragging the past along with you, all of it. And there may be parts of that past that each and every one of you on both sides of this partnership equation, all right? It's time to put it down. If it's too heavy, put it down. I want to teach you how to do that, all right? So that you are freer. You're more who you are today, moving forward, than dragging along all the guilt, all the past, all the trauma, all the beliefs, values, unfinished business, all right, that makes you afraid of making the decisions that would be in your best interest. Find the jewels, find those 1, 2, 3s. If you've read Conquer the Clutter, and please do, I'm not just pitching the book, all right, there's a Elaine sorting process in there, her scaling process, my scaling process. Read it. It will guarantee that when you move forward, you are bringing the things you treasure the most with you. And you're leaving the stuff that is just baggage behind. You can do it, all right? Currently, Lorraine is working with a rational emotive therapist, but she doesn't feel that she's making the progress she needs. She said she's a person of belief. She lives her faith. She reached out to me, she said, when she was desperate and she was looking for effective answers on how to help. And she found that. She said, like in my book, do you remember in that opening chapter when I said, anybody up there on my side, send me something, okay? Send me something to help this predictably miserable day. That was in a period of tremendous loss in my life. All right. And I was depleted. It can happen. I speak from experience. I don't hoard, but I speak from experience. It's a human reality. And she had said the same thing. Oh, Lord, give me a sign. All right. Whether you believe in the Lord or you believe in whatever you believe in is fine. I don't care by what name you attach to your beliefs. That doesn't matter as much as you're not alone. All right. And she said she signed into Dr. Carolyn Leaf's podcast, and I was the guest speaker, and she thought, whoa, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. That's what I was looking for. And I'm really happy. You know the irony of that, folks? I want to tell you a little backstory on that one. I think Lorraine's dead on the money. I think that timely information, I know I'm not the answer to everybody's problem, but, and I offer you humbly what I've learned through the generosity of the clients who have taught me what works and what doesn't work, okay? But that podcast had to be rescheduled twice. So when she signed into it that day, that was a fluke that her need and the information jived. All right, you're not alone. Okay. Now, ironically, she said typical of her, she believes, is that instead of going to the core issue of her needs, her depletion, no matter what relationship you have on either side of that equation, your first response is always, what do I need? Where is it? And how do I get it? And I do that not out of selfishness, all right, no matter whether you hoard or you don't, but because that will allow me to carry my own weight and meet my own responsibilities, which I can't do when I'm empty, when my needs aren't met, all right? So she focused on his behavior and also what she could do to help him to change this. She's taking responsibility for what really needs to be addressed by him, all right? So so here's the risk factor. I'm going to kind of fast forward through this a bit. The risk factor is that while the home, all right, it remains in relatively normal condition inside, relatively, they do have a 30 by 30 steel shed. It's a lovely building. It's an outbuilding, which adds significant value, okay, to that property that she owns alone, which is her financial security. He has completely filled it three-dimensionally, a minimum of 6 feet high. She can't get to areas that she needs to access without, first of all, she can't get to areas she needs to access. And then she needs the things that are in there. If she takes the risk, then she risks injury to herself, not just of tripping, but also of toppling, all right? And she could be seriously injured. He could be seriously injured, and he doesn't have the medical coverage that she was able to purchase as a result of her career. All right. Also, not just the risk of the accumulation, but her immediate concern is the chaotic way in which fuel, propane, gasoline containers, chemicals are stored in piles. And these are combustible materials, probably combustible, many of them, with the contents of the fuel and cleaning products, which are highly combustible, all right, right under and in close proximity to one another. If anything happened that those ignited, all right, that whole thing is going up, or it could explode. And she has a little camper in there that she can't get to, which also is one of the things that they use when they go away a little a bit together on weekends away in order to try to get away from the stress, in order to keep this marriage alive and on some kind of a positive, joyful basis. She's afraid that also, even if it caught fire, and she feels, and I think she's, again, accurate, it's a matter of time till something happens. That's too much risk, all right? Too much risk for something not to happen. But think about this. When it does happen, and their equivalent of the fire marshal goes in to determine why the fire, because this is going to be one big fire, a 30 by 30 shed. Some houses aren't that big. all right? Or an explosion if the combustion happens in that way that makes an explosion. The house is also going to be affected. That shed is not far enough away from the house. There's a better than even chance, a way better than even chance. Their fire insurance isn't going to cover the loss. All right. Everything she has that she is kindly, lovingly offering for their benefit, everything stands a high probability of being lost. All right. Added to that, there is, I don't want to over dramatize, but there's no guarantee that people won't be in the house, that he won't be in or around the shed. All right. And that shed is too close to the house for it to be 100% safe. They could be injured or worse yet, killed. All right. So she's looking for help about how to be what she says I call a clutter buddy. He's not interested. He's really not interested. He says he is, but then he won't act on it. He doesn't really see the problem. All right. He's not at the stage in his recovery or in his journey, even a journey to fairness. All right. To keep this marriage alive. He doesn't see the problem. He acknowledges there are a lot of things, but he tells her continually that he will get to it and doesn't act on it. She can feel the clock ticking, and she's asking, what can I do? All right. So here's where I want you folks to read along with me. If you've downloaded this from the website, have a look at it after. If you're working alone on your own environment, or you have a clutter buddy, or you're one of we now have the group membership one position away from filled, and I will be sending more information out on that. So if you're somebody who is going to participate in that hoarding support group, no, it's going to start I think the 9th of November. I'll clarify that with you. And we're going to run every 2 weeks so that it doesn't overwhelm you. This is something you want to bring yourself up to speed on, this environmental risk assessment checklist. All right, have a look at it. For those of you who love someone who hoards, have a look at it. These are the base. I put this together with this many years ago with the support of the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office, one of their representatives I worked quite closely with when I was the coordinator of the Ottawa Community Response to Hoarding Coalition and the Canadian National Hoarding Coalition. So let me go through this with you, all right? Okay, first, you must have every accommodation needs to have 2 ways, one way in, one way out. The way out doesn't necessarily have to be the way in. Sometimes it's a balcony, sometimes it's a veranda, sometimes it's something that will only allow firefighters to save you from. But you need to have 2 entrance and egress routes, all right, in case of any kind of an emergency. If you're not living in Ontario, and most people here today are we have some people here from Germany, I want you can do it anonymously, contact your fire department and ask for what their regulations are, all right? So you want, because that's the standard that you will be held to if there ever has to be an inspection. All right, so entirely unobstructed routes that are no less than the minimum 33. I ask for 36. If you can make 40 inches work, please do that, because we all know that until you really integrate the learning that we're doing in this podcast series, sometimes you're going to put stuff down, right? Or things will fall down. Now, this means the front door doesn't have things in front of it, and the back way out doesn't have that flower stand that you tell yourself, I can move that. Because in a crisis, you are not, your apex of awareness is going to be this, all right? And you are going to have one almighty adrenaline rush going through you. You're not going to remember what's around there that you told yourself you could avoid stepping on. The next priority is, again, absolutely clear access up the stairs, if there are stairs, down any hallway, into any room that is currently in active use. If you've got a room that is your spare bedroom and that is somewhat of a storage room, so long as it isn't just filled with combustible materials, all right, and you're working on it, that's not the worst, all right? So free, clear entrance and exits from each room that is in current use. You need to have a minimum of 3 feet around any heat source. Now, heat sources are things like furnaces, stoves, portable heater. Now, stoves, obviously, you probably have a counter on either side. So what that means is that that counter needs to be clear of anything that could blow on it, topple on it. All right, no buildups beside your stove, whether it's electric or gas or propane or whatever it is. All right, those areas beside your stove, please, please. I can't tell you how many people miscalculated that. All right, please clear those. Portable heaters, if you have to have portable heaters, make sure that they don't have an active coil. Ceramic heaters, all right. I use Dyson heaters in some of the areas of our new home that aren't the warmest. Okay, around baseboard heaters, don't have things piled up on top or against baseboard heaters. Water heaters for sure, especially if they're gas. Uncovered light bulbs, all right, a light bulb that doesn't have a shade with, what do they call it, an angel or something? A halo around it that keeps it, if it falls over, topples over, gets knocked over, it can't reach the floor, it can't reach the rug, it can't reach the papers that are on the table that sooner or later are going to ignite, all right? No uncovered light bulbs. Even if you can't afford a light shade, go to secondhand store, go to buy nothing groups, go wherever you have to go, all right? And get one of those halos that goes over a lamp or a light, okay? Anything that will burn, combust, or will conduct heat. Now, I'm going to give you a recap on a story that has happened once. I'll grant you only once, but it scared me because I would not have anticipated that. I had a new person call me who wanted to start working with me. Her house had just burned down. Okay, I don't mean to over dramatize, but her house was attached to somebody else's. Okay, and they didn't fare that well either. You know how it started? Her collection was mostly paper, all right? And her gas hot water tank in the basement misfired while she was at work. And however it misfired, it was emitting heat, not a flame, just heat. And the heat conducted itself down a metal shelf that was against the hot water tank. Now, no one would have thought that a metal shelf would be combustible. And there was nothing on the shelves, particularly at the base where the problem was created. There was nothing there that was immediately flammable or combustible. But the heat conducted far enough down that shelf shelf, and ignited, caused, first of all, smoking, all right, and then it ignited material. I think it was cloths, actually, that were just a little further down. No, I would never have thought that. I've never seen it before, and I've never seen it after. But I make a point to have you, when you're doing your audit, all right, please look for that possibility as well, and do what you can. Extension cords. Extension cords have a multi-problem to them. First of all, they are a tremendous tripping hazard, all right? And if they are covered by material or accumulation, they deteriorate, all right? They are material that becomes compromised. The other thing is mice love them, all right? And so if you have a buildup that's on the floor and you're covering these extension cords, the chance of you catching your foot on one and going upside down is high enough, all right? It is a tripping hazard. But more than that, you can't see what's happening down under that accumulation. And that burrowing, all right, is a haven. That burrowing opportunity is a haven for cockroaches, bed bugs, and mice. They love it. And they have been known to chew through and cause igniting the materials. Okay. Make sure, please, okay, that smoke detectors are, and carbon monoxide if you've got gas, meet your local fire regulation requirements, that they're functioning, all right? Make sure that you have those batteries on hand, all right? Consult your local fire inspection branch for enforceable standards in your area requiring smoke detectors. It's not the same in all areas. Make sure that you're erring on the side of caution. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk a little bit about right now in the next, say, 5 minutes, and then we'll see if we have 1 or 2 questions that I can get to, is self-inoculating yourself against this second wave, all right? The isolation, and how to obtain social and emotional support through a great, doable clutter buddy system. Either just to break down the isolation, or to actually have a clutter buddy if you want to use this time to start digging away, start making some of those decisions. Yes, the COVID second wave is upon us, but it doesn't have to mean debilitating personal isolation. All right, we're more informed now. The last time we didn't know what to expect. It was the great unknown, okay? And we got caught short. But we can draw on the experience we had before, not just the negative experience, but what we've learned from that moving forward. Get ready now. Build up 2 levels, 4, sorry folks, 2 levels of, math is not my strong suit, of contact. The first is our intimate bubble. Those 7 to 10 people that are our intimate bubble, all right, that we can be in physical proximity to. But also, we want to break down that feeling of being confined, right? Isolated, with all of our thoughts, all of our isolation, all of our vulnerabilities chewing around inside us. Know that a complete societal shutdown this time is very unlikely. All right, but we're not powerless. So let's move forward prophylactically, looking ahead, being ready. And we have 2 satisfying layers of personal contact and support. The first, okay, is our larger contact community. And that level goes beyond the 7 to 10 people, right? They are anybody we can reach by any technological means we have. It could be a hardwired land phone. It could be our smartphone. It could be through social media. It could be through FaceTime, through Duo, through WhatsApp, through Zoom. Zoom is free, all right? There's a free membership to Zoom. It could be through Google Meets. I haven't used Google Meets yet, all right? Okay, and so don't give in to fear. Oh, I don't know how to do that. It's so hard. If you feel that you can't do that, maybe what we do is we do our next podcast on how not to be isolated. And Jim sits in and he coaches you on how to maneuver those things. Skype, all right? If you have internet, if you have wireless, the world is your oyster, okay? The world is your oyster, okay? Now, what else do I want to tell you? Did I forget about any of the tools here? Online groups. We're going to be doing a hoarding support group on Zoom, all right? I would be perfectly willing to do a second group with either more people who have a clutter buddy or people who are living, who love and care for but don't know what to do or how to do it. For people who hoard, okay, and they are their loved one's support system, I'd be perfectly prepared to do a second group for that group. Let me know. Send me emails. This is the time. We can break down isolation. You don't have to be a victim, and you don't have to come out of this. I know that we've already in our family accepted that we're not getting together for Thanksgiving. And so I think I'm also not even going to bother doing a turkey as a result. Woo, woo, no dishes. Maybe we'll do skip the dishes. Who makes turkey? Do we want turkey? We can have anything we want if we do skip the dishes or Uber Eats. Hey, this could work. And no dishes. Yay, no cleanup in the kitchen. We're going to do a Zoom meeting. All right, we did one in the spring, in the middle of COVID, and we're going to do another one. And I've got family all over the world, right? And we're all going to meet on Zoom, and we're going to celebrate Thanksgiving that way. There will be another Thanksgiving. It is almost never the event itself that hurts you. It is the meaning you apply to it. I want everybody, as part of my closing message before I pick up the one or two questions in the chat box there, I want everybody to take personal responsibility. The meaning you apply to whatever is coming as a result of COVID, short of something like illness or death or whatever, all right? That's outside this box. Just the normal events that we're all going to have to handle. It's the meaning you apply to it, all right? In the same way, I'm not being a phony because I hate doing dishes. I hate emptying the dishwasher. I hate filling the dishwasher for that matter. I'm making myself see. My first thought was, oh, we're not going to get together. Oh. And then I thought, no, you know what? Make it work. Live forward, Elaine. Walk the talk. Yeah, it's disappointing, but you know what? I can have those people. I can have more people part of my Thanksgiving network just by sending them an email. And we set a day and time. Okay? It's the meaning we apply to it. Catch yourself. Catch yourself if you always go to negative or you always go to the cost. Look for what the upside is. Okay, we're going to do a few questions here as we have a little bit of time. to the person who has asked me, yes, to call them, yes, I will. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Shoshana. All right. Pat, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Pat wishes everybody happy Thanksgiving. This is kind of becoming like a little family, like we're a little neighborhood. And I love that. Okay, let's take care of each other. All right. We understand each other in a way that many other people from the outside don't. Okay, let's make that work for us. All right. So we do, everyone. Just to clarify, I think you said the hoarding support group that will start in November. Yes. And whoops, it is. And the people who send in emails to sign up, yes, that's absolutely true, Zoe. I'm sorry, we're a little behind on that. I just this week, because I couldn't go to Mississauga, the numbers are up there and the numbers are up here, had the time to sit down. I'm really excited, okay, about what that group is going to be. And I'm going to outline it for everybody next week. But we will be in contact with you this week coming, all right? Not like Wednesday to Friday, but from Monday to whatever, maybe before that, but I'm promising next Monday to next Friday, absolutely. All right, Joan. Joan is feeling stuck. She said, I still have not made any movement. I'm getting scared, just being honest. It is scary. It is scary when you feel yourself overwhelmed. I have a new piece of material that I want to review more, Joan. And I think that down the road, like maybe in a few weeks, I will make that the subject of how to get unstuck, okay? All right. Even if you could have, whoever is stuck with Joan, feeling stuck, even if you could arrange an emotional clutter buddy, all right? Somebody who you can call when you're discouraged, somebody you can call when you do that 15 minutes a day. Maybe to begin, it isn't every day, all right? Or you do 5 minutes, all right? Whatever it is, celebrate it. And it really adds to it if you have somebody who has accepted that they will talk to you, all right? They will celebrate with you. Despite all the work that still has to be done, that's not the important focus right then. It is to validate the effort you've made. Live forward. If it's too heavy, Joan, all right, put it down. Don't carry it anymore. What do I need? Where is it? And how do I get enough of it to make a difference in my life? All right. Oh, Shoshana wishes everybody happy holidays as well. And Lisa, hello Lisa, to everyone. Peace, love, and Thanksgiving to all of you. I have to leave now because I'm off to the dentist. Okay. Zoe, no worries, just don't want to miss the boat. That's okay. Marine, to everyone. Hang in, Joan. I'm in the same boat, but I hope. I never felt so understood as here with Elaine. We will find tiny baby step answers. All right, we will do that. And you will work on them. All right, okay. Silver to everyone. Bonne action de grâce. Shoshana to everyone, especially you right now, Joan. Remember, you are never alone. All right? You are never alone. If you're feeling alone, one of the things I want you to do then that is right there for the taking, go back on hoarding.ca and sit through the community meetings, the podcasts that are posted. They're all posted except for today's now. All right? And just absorb that community. Absorb the fact that you're not alone. All right? And you're not broken, okay? You have a challenge. Oh, to Anij, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. New here, and I don't usually do family holidays, but this year I wanted to. Zoom is your friend, Anij. Zoom is your friend. Or Skype. Okay. Miriam to everyone. Merci d'être la bonne. Thanksgiving. Merci, Elaine. Okay. Yes. I know. Okay. We'll work on that. Shoshana to everyone. Yes, Crystal, for sure. Where did Shoshana, where did you go? Yes, Crystal, for sure. Mindset, very important at the beginning. Absolutely. All right. Miriam to everyone. We will have Thanksgiving next week. Normalement, mon fils vient à Ottawa et fête son anniversaire. C'est rapport avec amour en patience. Yes. Pat, remember 15 minutes a day. That's right. 50. You can do anything for 15 minutes a day. Thanks, Elaine. Shirley to everyone. Would you please review the basics of the group? Who should sign up? Is it too late? Thanks for these sessions. It isn't too late. I have 2 more spots available on that group, although the group will run even if 2 more people don't sign up. What we're going to do is I will, if you're interested, Shirley, I will put you on the group with your email, and we will include you as a possible member, and you will get the email that's coming, okay? And I will review it next week, but I'm keeping people late right now. So it's a hoarding support group, okay? All right. For those people who can, you can hang in. Apparently we have 23 new messages. Crystal, I also haven't made a lot of progress. I lost you there, Crystal. Hold on. Okay. I haven't made a lot of progress, but I'm changing my mindset. Mindset is the first thing, Crystal. Mindset is the first thing, because your hands can't do what your mind can't see. Okay? Mind first. Okay. All right. Let me look here. We will all have Thanksgiving next week. Okay, that's Miriam. Miriam, I do some progress. I do blame myself less. Yes, good. Because you empty yourself. I stay less to stay positive and be proactive. If I do start 15 minutes, I stay there for many hours and I have no doubt of time. Oh, set a timer. Miriam, I don't want you going beyond the 15 minutes. It's about learning to self-regulate. You won't do that. All right. If you do if you turn it into a massive experience, it's what you do every day that makes the difference. Okay, regularly. And if you can't make yourself do 15 minutes a day, you're not ready for the extravaganza. Okay, you won't go back to it. So you're actually training yourself to self-regulate. So we have 26 new messages. I wish we had time. We don't have time to do it, but I will keep those messages, and I will thank you most sincerely for such enthusiasm. 26 new messages. So I'll keep those messages, and as best I can, I will answer them in the next podcast, okay? You take care. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Guess what I'm doing? I'm beginning to record the audiobook. So I'm narrating the audiobook, and I have an engineer, and it starts on Sunday, and we're going to produce an audiobook that people are going to be able to access, and that's going to be for those people who, especially those people who are living with ADD and ADHD, or any other people who are more auditory learners. Okay, take care. Have a great week. Thank you for showing up, everybody. It was great. And thank you for your 31 new messages. Wow. Okay, take care. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye now.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of you.